Hello, everyone. This is Hafiz. We are going to start in just a moment, but if I could, I'd love to ask, for those of you on the phone line, if you would please mute your phone. You can see it on the webinar interface up in the upper right-hand corner, a microphone icon. You can click on that. That will help us keep ambient noise down. All right, by my clock, it is 1 p.m., and we will get started with the webinar. If I could ask those of you that are on the phone line to just mute your phones so that we don't pick up any ambient noise, especially if you have your computer speaker going at the same time. We're going to get a little bit of audio feedback that way. But my name is Hafiz. I'm the facilitator for the Connected Learning Innovation Community with IMS Global Learning Consortium, and we are sponsoring this webinar, The Power of Personalization, How Adaptive Technology is Transforming Teaching and Learning. I'm still picking up a little bit of noise, so I'm hoping some folks will be able to mute their lines.
I think it's call-in user 10. If you don't mind, please, I don't know what the name is, but it's, okay, there you go. Thank you so much. Thanks, you. Thanks. Please have.
Okay, thank you. So with us doing the webinar, we welcome Bill Billick, VP of Adaptive Learning with Desire to Learn, and he will be doing much of the early part of the webinar presentation, and we also have Drew Pollen, who's manager for Learning Design and Innovation at the University of British Columbia. And the two of them will present, I think, is going to be a fairly fascinating look at adaptive learning and a tool that leverages the LTI standards to be able to incorporate itself into learning management systems. And you'll have opportunities to ask questions by typing into the chat window on the webinar screen, and then our folks will see the questions and we will respond to them throughout the presentation. So just a little bit before we begin the presentation, I want to just talk about the Connected Learning Innovation Community, or sometimes CLIC as we call it. The Connected Learning Innovation Community is really about building awareness around the LTI conformance standards for education apps. Really one of the large initiatives we are pushing forward is this idea of building education apps that work a lot like cell phone apps and are able to be plugged into learning management systems, mobile platforms to facilitate the teaching and learning process. So instead of having weeks, hours, weeks, and sometimes months to integrate third-party apps into your learning environment, it would be wonderful to be able to drop apps in just like we bring them in from, say, the Google Play Store or iTunes Store into our cell phones. That's sort of the goal of having LTI standards, and what we're trying to do with the CLIC community is raise awareness around that. So I have 3 bullet points here, well, 4 actually, but the first one, way that you can help in terms of participation is to sign the petition, and the URL is given there. You can see this. Won't read the URL. But what the petition allows us at IMS to do is to build a base of users that have a large voice. So we can take this to the greater education community and say, and use it to demonstrate that there is some desire and some momentum from the user perspective to incorporating LTI standards. There's also a newsletter, a CLIC newsletter that goes out regularly to the community that just gives information on things such as this webinar and other activities going on in the Connected Learning Innovation Challenge, Innovation Community. And then finally, there's the App Challenge, that this year there's a deadline of December to enter the App Challenge, but what we're doing with the App Challenge is focusing on apps, LTI-conformant apps that have been created by higher ed institutions. So the competition will be limited to higher ed institutions this time around. Winners will be announced, selected and announced early next year. But for more information on the App Challenge, you can go to that URL that you see on the screen. And then finally, if you have any specific questions or would like more information, you can contact me directly at that email address at the bottom of the screen. And with that, I'm going to hand the presentation baton over to Bill, and he will take it from here, and he and Drew will be able to provide you with, I think, a fascinating look at adaptive learning.
Thank you so much, I welcome everybody to this webinar. It's really a pleasure to talk, and expectations are set high. Thank you, Hap, for saying that it's going to be fascinating, and I personally do believe it's fascinating, but I hope you will think the same. The way we'd like to structure it today is that I will try to give you a little bit of a background on what the personalization is. Why do we think it's important, and how do we address it with the desire to learn leap? Then I'll give you a demo of the product as it stands with FDI implementation in the learning management system, and then I'll pass it on to Drew to tell you a little bit more about what has been the experience of University of British Columbia in using that tool, so you can see that from a perspective of somebody implementing it really down on the ground. The fourth part, if you will be questions, and I do encourage you to post the questions in the chat window throughout the presentation. I will try to address them as they go, or I will just say we will do it later, or address it separately if it requires a little bit more time. There's a call in user 24 that's still not on mute. So if you guys don't mind, just anybody who's on the phone, if you can just explicitly set yourself on a mute, that would really help going through this smoothly. Thank you so much. So I'll try to not tell you what is already known, but share the passion that we have with the personalization. And like in this first slide, it says the educational technology has gone far, but it does not, we believe, it creates a lot of this room for self-initiated, self-regulated learning. And we believe that's where the personalization fits, not in the room to replace the teacher. It's actually trying to address that activity that already happens, whether we like it or not, outside of a formal educational environment. And I will pose this question later on. Is Googling actually learning, as we know that people go out and they Google in order to supplement their knowledge? The point is, what kind of tool? How can we build a educational technology that helps people traverse and manage this journey, as we call learning process? We ultimately all arrive at that, and it's just how we get there. It's unique and it's part of that journey. So the tools that we have are non-linear. What do we mean by non-linear? They happen all over the place. They're not synchronized. You may take some of the activity in the classroom by listening to a teacher, taking a practice test, but then going home and Googling it, and then maybe taking some tests on your own. All of these activities are sort of non-linear. They're happening on their own. We're not connecting the process of learning, which actually traverses through all of this, and bringing home the value that we receive out of that journey. I'm not probably making a heresy statement here, but learning management systems, they should be called teaching management systems, because they facilitate teaching more than learning. So our mission is how do we, in addition to helping teaching and help education scale as any other business, but how do we manage more effective learning? This is, again, not to replace teachers, but more give them a more effective set of tools to make them better teachers and make learners better learners. So what educational technology can do that? And as we looked at that, we started looking at reinforcement learning as one of the primary ways of how can that be helped. So we asked the question from a behavioral psychology, how does learning as a process happen to begin with? How do babies learn? They don't go to a classroom and sit in front of a teacher in a group of 30 and then they learn how to walk or talk or eat. It's deeply individual. And it happens through a process of reinforcement. And that reinforcement happens on a basis of a feedback. And that's what we looked at, and we say, once you take a journey through the process of acquiring the knowledge, so the knowledge acquisition, there's no, and that's the premise of self-regulated learning. There's no acquisition of knowledge unless the feedback takes place. In other words, a learner can learn all day long as they don't talk to a teacher tells them that's right or wrong, or do something about it, or they take a test of some sort, or they talk to their peers. They don't know whether that learning took place. If call-in user 28 can please 28 and 29 can please mute your phone, your lines. That'd be really good. So when we looked at the reinforcement, what it meant to us that there's that missing crown jewel. How do we get the feedback and connect it with the traversal through the body of knowledge? What if we can now, with that feedback, find out what works, what doesn't? And if there is a system that can now, based on that, tell us and give us a recommendation for that traversal. In other words, if 100 students have gone through a body of knowledge and certain parts worked or didn't, based on the feedback that they received, either formal test or teacher, there must be a way of finding a way to evaluating that. So what's the problem that we try to solve? Let's just step back before we get carried. So I'm probably stating way too much obvious of a statement by saying that the budget pressures prevent personalized instruction. Of course, like I said, education is a business of scale, and it's trying to provide more efficient instruction, and it oftentimes is not most effective personalized instruction because we simply don't have time. So any investment, or most investment that we made so far with the content we provided have failed at least to our best knowledge. Yet there's such a huge amount of untapped nonlinear content that is all over the place in open educational resources, out on the web, or even from people who provide us the content. So where we find the opportunity is there a way to use existing content and technology? Is there a way to use learning tool interoperability and IMS set of specifications to leverage your already made investments in technology? Keep your LMS, keep your assessment, keep your questions, keep your content. But can we bring something that you don't have to change anything and then we can still help you out? Can we align the content automatically? There has been an enormous amount of money investment that we meant by the problem portion of a statement, where people align their outcomes to the content by hand. What questions should we ask if the student fails this question, and then what content do we offer as a remediation? So there's an opportunity there to align that content automatically. And then next one would be, let's try and personalize the learning based on the feedback. If somebody with the same academical capacity have gone through a certain body of knowledge and have done well, then somebody at the same academic level should probably benefit from that same traversal through the body of knowledge, and we can make certain assumptions about their success. I will make again another statement that a lot of people think adaptive learning is about student performance, and it is. So don't get me wrong, it is. But it's also about the content performance. In other words, learning is twofold. It can be exploitive and it can be explored. So most time learning takes place when we do the exploration, when we go and try different things. So if we have one book and we just exploit it, everybody goes to the same path. We cannot personalize with one book. We have to have more than that. But if we have more than that, how do we know what works, what doesn't? And that's our focus. We don't only say, let's focus on the student performance, but let's find out what content worked. And you will see later in our demo how we do that. And last but not least, to us, it's extremely important that we do this based on standards and using an LTI such that what you're going to see today will be demonstrated on a desire to learn. And of course, because of the native integration, works best in desire to learn. But desire to learn leads works equally well and in the same way on Canvas, on Blackboard, and Moodle. So what you're going to see today, if you want, we can set up a separate demo, and you will see it working using the LTI absolutely in the same way on these three other platforms. So the solution that we built is actually the learning engine, like I said, that serves as a foundation for this. But then we built an LTI tool that serves as a tool that you can see in your learning management system, where it aggregates the content, the assessments, provides these recommendations. So it effectively is the middleware. It sits between your learning management system and these various sources of knowledge, assessment, content, and your learning objectives. It's adaptive in its nature, and it's using very sophisticated machine learning and reinforcement learning, among many other things. And based on these algorithms, proprietary algorithms, provides fully personalized set of recommendations based on a current knowledge of a learner at that point of time through the lifelong learning process, because it's not specific to any one of these segments. It, like I said, it's flexible because of, thanks to LTI, it integrates with your existing technology and the content just by simple virtue of getting the LTI key and being dropped into these 4 learning management systems. Of course, like I said, with D2L, we have a native integration, so it does much more than that. I will show you the analytics that we do in the tool, so it shows you exactly what content worked and for what students and for what learning outcomes exactly for each one of their personalized learning paths that we built. Given that that's LTI tool, it's very light, it's fast because it sits in the middle, there's no heavy lifting, and as a result, of course, it's very cost effective because it takes just a simple key to drop it into your learning management system. So this may be a little bit too technical, but it serves really well in my previous presentation as a sort of stage before I show you the demo where the moving parts are. So on the left-hand side, we have a desire to learn or learning management system that has its own set of learning activities or learning objects, how you call them, the content, the questions. It normally uses some learning object repository, and most of LMSs these days, they have learning object repository attached to the learning management system. On the other side, we have 3 predominant groups of content. One is the open educational resources, and this is not meant to be exhaustive list. Then we have institutional content, where you have your own libraries, repositories that you invested in, and last but not least is the commercial content that most of schools, most of people that provide education are using. So how it works today is that you would normally, from your learning management system, connect your content either from learning object repository or to any one of these resources, and you will have to, as a teacher, to order them in a way you want to deliver education. What we're proposing, what you're going to see the demo in just a moment, is to bring a learning engine, D2L learning engine in between, that has these 4 core services. This is maybe a little bit overwhelming, but before I get into a demo, I think it's important to see that it sits in the middle and then gathers all these pieces of content, and then, of course, gets it from your learning management system, from your learning object repository, and any one of these types of repositories. Then aggregates them, and via tracking the activity service in your feedback, finally provides the LTI desire to learn LEAP tool that is fed by these recommendation services, where you get aggregated steps, your learning path, what we believe you should be doing. So bringing this, what I talked at the beginning, non-linearity, so a variety of sources from all over the web into one single learning path for your learner that is aligned with your learning objectives from the course, which you're going to see in the demo that I'm going to show now. So let me now switch to the learning management system. So this, for some of you, may be familiar user interface. This is Desire to Learn platform, so where I'm going to demo, but like I said, the same demo will work equally well in other learning management systems. So once I log in as a teacher, I have a course for science, and it's done like that on purpose. So what we have here in the content section, I have a lot of content. I have 263 pieces of content, and I'll just scroll through them very quickly. So as you can see here, there's a lot of simulations. There's some Wikipedia content. This is not meant to be approved content, but so don't mind Wikipedia content. There's a lot of, I think we have a lot of videos down at the bottom. But Yeah, these are some simulations, and so on and so on. So we have a lot of content here that's meant to provide sort of 101 science for, say, grade 10 in a K-12, but it could be as well any other science course. So what we should probably try and do is, let's imagine that we have a introduction to science with these three groups, where we're in a third week of chemistry, so we want to deliver, say, a chemical reactions for the chemistry portion of this course. And we want to use the content that I just showed you is in this course already. So normally the way you would do it is, like I showed it here in the ecosystem, in your learning management system, you will create some introductions, provide some links, some PDFs, and then you'll probably provide a final course. What we're suggesting is to provide some learning modules, some units of education that allows sort of adaptive modules, something that will leverage the power of your content, but in a personalized way. Adapt it to the learners in four primary ways. Either allow enrichment, supplemental education, remediation, and last but not least, the intervention. So this module will probably help the learners get the most out of what they know. There's really no way for teachers to do that if they would do it manually. All students would have to go through this step. So let's see how we can do that. If we have just a simple module, how we can do that with LEAP. So the way it would work, we would have to make two steps. The first one is create the LEAP, and then the next one I'll show you how it works. So once we click on LEAP, what happens now, it's asking us to give it a name. That is to say, we say LEAP 3 reactions. Now that we've created it, now when I click on it, I'm entering it as a teacher. So the step number one out of three that I'm going to go through is, what do you want to teach as a teacher? And as some of you might be aware, we have just recently acquired the Achievement Standards Network, which brings all these Common Core state standards learning objectives very nicely organized and structured. So you could pick your state and do whatever you believe is necessary for your state. However, I already have some imported, and you can upload as well your own if you wanted to. But for the purposes of this demo, I'll just, because it's chemical reactions, I'll pick those four that are already imported in this course. And as you can see, they're really simple statements, learning outcomes, or objectives as you call them. So it simply describes what we're going to teach in this course. So I'll select these four because they're talking about the chemical reactions that I, as a teacher, decided to cover in this week 3 of the course. That's step number one. What do we want to teach? Step number 2 is, as you will recall from my slide, we are now out of vastness of repositories of content that are available. We will choose which ones do we want to use to deliver this week 3. Now, by default, anything that is in this course, so those 250 pieces of content we have will be already included in Learning Path that LEAP will build in a moment for us. So I will, in addition to that, I'll add some open educational resources that are just a sample for chemistry that I put together for this demo. So that's step number 2. What content do we want to use to deliver for these learning objectives? And step number 3, how do you want to verify the mastery of those objectives? So there are many ways we can import the questions. I have already done that for this course, so I have a lot of multiple choice questions for this demo. So that's step number 3. How do you want to verify the mastery of the content? So that's, whether you believe it or not, it. What do you want to teach? What content do you want to use? And how do you want to verify the mastery? LEAP will do the rest. It's just asking us a few questions. How do we want to set the learning path before it's given to the student? And as you can tell, it's fairly explanatory. We can provide more questions per learning objective because some teachers believe that you cannot verify the mastery of a learning objective with just one question. So you can say that 1 to 3. So we'll give more questions to verify that mastery. We can start a pre-test if we wanted to. We can hide the master content so as the students go through, they will not see the content and so on and so on. So if I click submit, that's pretty much it. We have created a LEAP for our chemistry module. So now LEAP is behind the scene, using the content we selected and the questions, and trying to build a personalized learning path for those students. When I click on this, look what's going to happen now. LEAP is going to inform us, oh, it's already did. Sometimes it tells us, I'm still working on the content. I need more time to traverse through it to find, but in this case, it already built a learning path. So let me give you a little bit of an orientation through the UI. What are we showing here? So this is where the LEAP is, LTI tool, from here to here. So on the left, we see the learning path that LEAP built for these 4 learning objectives. So this is what LEAP believes is the order of the materials that were available to cover those learning objectives. Here we can navigate through the content, go to previous next, and then I'll go through these in a moment to explain what all of their self-explanatory of what they do. So as I navigate through the learning path, there are 2 very important things that we provide out of the box. So you don't have to do any mapping. You remember that we will, when I said that we will map the content. So how we do that is that, look, under the recommended reading, we first of all found what's the best page for that learning path. But we have also found out what are the alternative materials for that learning objective. So none of this requires any teacher's intervention or mapping or connecting. No, we did this automatically for you. And as you navigate through the content, at every step of the way, we find the best page, but then we find what are the alternative pages or videos, whatever is available to us. That's one thing. And the other one is that, again, for every step of the way, we provide a practice question. Again, automatically. We don't ask you as a teacher to map what question is good for what material. We do that automatically. And as you will probably see, if I try to answer the question, that's not where it stops. I'm trying to get it wrong, so I'll just say don't know. So what happens now, LEAP does not stop there. LEAP continues providing recommended reading, and it tells us what to do if that is incorrect. So not only that it gives us the best page and or alternative pages or pieces of content, but it tells us what to do if we did not master it. So we can always click on this page, read it, and then go back to study and continue our process where we stop, take another practice question and find out whether we mastered the knowledge. If not, it will tell us, no, that's not correct, you have to read this. And if we say, I don't really get it, what do I do? Do I really have to do what you tell me? No. There's a search. So what we do, using the boundaries that you told us, i.e., what repositories should we use? What content should we use for this particular week 3 chemical reactions? We have built a search engine around that. So you can go here and say, I want all materials pertaining to chemical reactions, but give me simulations. I'd like to try a simulation. Or give me only videos because I happen to like more videos than anything else. And of course, go there, and then again, like I said, this is coming from all resources. This one is coming from YouTube. I think this one is from Khan Academy. But as you can see, you can pick your, although sometimes controversial, but you can pick what type of content do you really like, just like in the Google. And some enrichment students, what they would do, they will just go here and they will find out what they don't know, and then read only that, which again is another way of learning. So once a student going through this material finds out that they have mastered the content by reading the material that we told them in the learning path, taking recommended reading and in practice, they can always take a test. And that, again, is done automatically. So what LEAP does, based on the learning objectives that you chose to teach in this week 3, and the questions that were available, it creates, based on the path that you've taken, creates the best test that it thinks for that student is most appropriate for that level of knowledge, based on the questions that I answered and how I answered them. So I'll try to see if I can go through this test. I think this one is utilization. So I got 60% correct. And as in the previous case, it's going through each of the questions and telling us, you know, that's correct, that's not. If you want to read it, you can go and read it. So it immediately gives you a feedback. However, for the purposes of demo, of course, I cannot go through, there's so many things that I need to show. Let's see what happens when I continue studying. You see that learning paths change. So what Leap did, it now recalculated the learning path. It's not supplementing. It's not just adding at the end. It's just recalculating it completely. And it adds small icons at each end of the items. And it says that believing on everything that's been done so far, this content is mastered, but these small shadow figures are added to your content and believed to be something that you specifically have to read, and so on and so on. So we can now take a test if we want again and repeat this as many times as we want until we see that all of these are mastered. Of course, we could at any point of time, we can check our progress and see how many tests we have done, how much time we spent, how many practice questions we have taken, what other activity we have taken. In our case, we supposedly spent 3 minutes on viewing 5 articles, 1 video, 1 recommended video, and so on. But at the same time, instead of going back, we can always see what is that I have done and why did I got to that. But at the same time, the same layout, the same report is available to teachers. The teacher can always see how did you get to these results and exactly what sequence you have pursued while going through these. So that is how teacher sees Leap. We do allow contribution of the content outside of the process of creating the Leap, but that's a separate topic. It can be repository, and the manage is probably the most important part of the part that you will probably be interested. So let me enter. That's only visible to a teacher, of course. Student cannot see this, but otherwise, everything is the same available to students. So when we click on manage, there are several options available to us, and I'll walk just a few of them because the time is somewhat limited and I want to pass it on to Drew. So here we can add more repositories if we want to. We can browse and find out what's in those. We can change the settings, as you've seen. We can allow student contribution. We can increase the number of the questions per learning objectives. But this is probably the most important part that I want to draw your attention to. And this is, if you recall, my point about not only a student performance, but also content performance. Let me walk you through this. It looks deceivingly simple. But on the left, these are our 4 learning objectives that we chose to teach in week 3 of our chemical reactions. You will probably recall these. And now, every time I select the learning objective, in a second column, we see what content was included, what is that Leap believed to be most helpful content to master that learning objective. Now, in columns 3 and 4, we see what content and in what order will be given for that particular learning objective, and the same for the question. So if I click on rates of reactions, you will see that the first page is the chemical kinetics, and here it is, will be the first page included in learning path. But these are the other pages that were considered, and this is what we believe in our proprietary algorithm, how valuable they will be, based on other people's grades on it, semantic relevance, if there hasn't been any activity, and so on. And the same for the question. If you, as a teacher, don't believe that's the way it should be, that you would rather show something else, you can either search for it and find it in this list, or you can pick any one of these and then you can promote it. You can say, I want this to be the first page in my path, and you can change it to whatever you want. Once you do that, you see it's noted as what is the percentage that you want it to be, so to promote it to the first place, and it's green so that you know that you intervene. Same for the questions. You can say that this is the question that I want to be shown first. It will be shown first once every learner goes to that spot. One important thing is that what Leap is saying is, how can I take a drive of this so that there's not a lot of this voodoo magic? I don't know how it works. I just show you how you can, if you want, pretty much manually by having the help of a search engine. You can say, I want a video to be first, and you can click here and you can say, I want first to see this video. So you will see then that for that particular learning objective, that's what we're going to show first. So you could handcraft the learning path if you wanted to. You can override Leap, but yet still take full advantage of it. And Another, also deceivingly simple and kind of hidden thing is this slide bar down below, which allows you to slide and set the threshold below which you don't want content to be shown in your learning path. In other words, if you don't have a good content, you don't want content that is not approved by you to go and trickle through intentionally or unintentionally. So this allows you to, like I said earlier, to provide a proper level of content performance in addition to student performance to go to your students and see what they want to do. Of course, we have reports that are fairly extensive. You can see how the map, probably should go back to another module so that you just see these that I've already taken, some students enrolled that I've taken, because this one I just created, there's no activity, there's no students enrolled in it, so I'll just show you in this previous one that I created. There's a lot of activity, and then you can drill down in so many different ways. You can find out how do your outcomes work, what was the latest score, how many attempts they've taken, how much time they've spent on content, what was the results of the assessment they've taken after that, what's the learned value, some is greater, and so on. And so there's so much to it that it well exceeds the time limitations of this presentation. But that in a very quick, I'm not doing good service to all the richness of what it can do, but that will be essentially what LEAP is doing. Please note that, like I said, this is LTI tool that is deployed in Desire to Learn, and I showed you, and if you deploy this in any other learning management system, the power of adaptive learning and personalization will equally well work. So with that said, does anybody have any questions before I pass it on to Drew? If you do, please don't hesitate to type in the chat window. So I will now hand it over to Drew and see. So quick summary is that when you want to teach, you have to select your learning objectives, select the content questions, and with that you can easily help what we call a motivated student. On the other hand, when we're aiming at the student, we can start with a pretest and help with the personalized learning path just built for every student and adjust along the way. So this is now, I'm handing it over to Drew. So Drew, I hope this was helpful.
Okay, thanks a lot, Bill, and thanks everybody for joining in today for this webinar. So first, I just want to introduce myself again. I'm Drew Pollan. I'm the Manager of Learning Design and Innovation at the Sauder School of Business at the University of British Columbia. I guess my role here is just to act as a bridge between pedagogy, curriculum design, and technology. And to that end, I do a lot of collaboration with our faculty here, in terms of developing their courses, developing learning activities. But I also work with, academic technologists, developers, and vendors. And as you can imagine, I get sort of pitched by people with great ideas fairly often. And so, I've developed a critical approach to new tools. And so, needless to say, when Bill first approached us here with LEAP and with sort of all these sort of big promises, I was a little bit skeptical. But after being, shown a little bit of how it works and actually seeing it in action, I have to say that skepticism really quickly turned to enthusiasm. And I really saw a lot of potential in terms of what this tool can do for learning, and particularly for our students and instructors here at UBC. So, quickly I want to discuss the collaboration between our team here at UBC and the LEAP team, the D2L team. So we ran a pilot study using the LEAP system as part of our quantitative methods prep course for our accounting program here at the Sauder School of Business. The pilot took place last year in May. It lasted only about 12 days, was offered to a cohort of 40 students. So we were really interested in personalization and improved learning efficiencies that we knew that LEAP could offer to our students. But I think, the motivation for our instructors for this pilot who wanted to use LEAP was its ability to really leverage, filter, and organize open educational resources. So the online course was put together to supplement face-to-face sessions, and it was built entirely from open educational resources pulled together by the tool based on a list of learning objectives that the instructors submitted. And I have to say it did a really good job of this. It really did facilitate rapid creation of this new course using all OER, Open Educational Resources, and then mapping them to predefined objectives of the course. And it really did a good job of smoothly integrating with Blackboard. We're a Blackboard shop here at UBC. And it provided learners with, test-enhanced, personalized learning paths. And, what we saw was that it allowed them to really, improve their learning. And they all actually ended up achieving pretty decent scores on their assessments. And they did it more effectively. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But what we found in our pilot study were some very positive associations between content viewed and the post-test scores within and across all the modules that we had them do. We saw positive correlations between the number of practice questions and their post-test scores, as well as the number of practice questions and the number of recommendations provided by the LEAP system. So what we actually saw was 60% of the students using the tool improved their scores in every test that they took in LEAP. And 74% and 63% of the students respectively stated that they found the post-test and practice questions useful to their learning experience. Definitely from the student perspective, LEAP was a win. They thought it was a really useful tool to have included as part of the curriculum. So, because of this, and because, we had some positive anecdata, both from the students and the instructors, about how the tool had a positive impact on learning, we wanted to sort of get more actual data to support that anecdata. We were really interested in collecting some actual data and pulling together a scientific experiment study to evaluate the LEAP platform formally. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a few slides, but first I want to talk about what, from our perspective, this tool can do, and really why I think it's super important and relevant in today's changing educational landscape. So Bill, if you want to just click forward for me.
Okay.
Thank you. So I think, as I said, that LEAP's really relevant and important in today's learning landscape. And I think it really addresses one of the problems that we as educators and learners are really facing today. So when we have a look back, or kind of at the sort of front state of where we are today in traditional education, I think first of all we have a fixed set of homogeneous content. It's curated by the instructors, by the course designers, and so yes, we know that it's high quality and that it's relevant to the learning objectives of the course. But at the same time, students don't really have much freedom to follow their own path and personalize their learning within the confines of the course. And self-regulated learning is definitely something that we are aware is happening. And Bill sort of offered the question: is Googling things learning? And I think it's a tool to learn, but it definitely is not the most efficient way to do it. So again, students don't really have much freedom to follow their own path within the curriculum. It's also really difficult to teach to the individual student's level. We can't teach to the advanced students at the top of the class, and we have a difficult time addressing struggling students because we're going to leave a lot of them behind. And so, really what we have is traditional curriculum tending to provide a one-size-fits-all learning experience for students. And we see this issue, especially in really large classes. And I'm sure, as many of you are aware, there's definitely a push in higher education, at least, towards large enrollment and more blended learning, or even distance learning structures, simply because scalability and the numbers that can drive. So in order to do that, I think we have to figure out a different way of doing things. And so really, if you want to push ahead, Bill, for me on the slide deck. I think really, we're really in transformative times. And, there's this whole thing of learning 2.0. And I think a lot of this has to do with, the web and how it's brought about all these changes. But really what it's done is it's brought a vast amount of resources from different groups gathered around a shared focus of learning. And, so we see a whole lot of open educational resources out there. And I think all of these available resources have resulted in new approaches to how we teach and how we learn. We're really interested in how people navigate this vast amount of available content and how they go about understanding what is useful, because I think that is really, a huge challenge for us. So we can understand Learning 2.0 as this open, long-tailed, personalized and yet unstructured venture, right? Because people will, go out and try to navigate through this vast amount of content, but I think it's a really difficult thing to do. So clearly, it has transformative possibilities. People can explore what they're interested in. They can go at their own pace. They can seek out remedial content or advanced content, or take their learning in a different direction. It's completely wide open for everybody. So I think self-regulated learning is central to these new possibilities. But there's also a lot of problematic issues. Bill, if you could push the slide forward. Thanks. So yeah, as I said, it presents lots of obstacles, both for educators and for learners. For educators, now we have this massive amount of curation work that we need to do. There's all sorts of great high quality content out there, but there's also just a lot of content that maybe isn't so great or maybe isn't super relevant for what you're wanting to teach your students. And so it's hard to know what is actually good, what's relevant, what's going to be effective for my particular context and course, and how is it going to fit in with my course's learning objectives and with some of the other content that I really want my students to be exposed to. And for learners, there's also a similar problem, but beyond that of sort of filtering for quality and fit, there's also the problem of what do I know well and what do I not know in relation to everything that's out there. So if you jump in at the advanced level, it's really not going to do you any good. You have to sort of sequence up to that from a learner's perspective. And finally, there's the problem of how it all relates to each other and how does it fit together. As a learner, you really need to know, what do I need to know next? What should I be looking for as a next step in my learning? And going back to this idea of is Googling learning, I think as I said, I think it's a tool to help it, but it also presents its own problem, and that is the anomalous state of knowledge. In that you don't really know what you don't know, and you certainly don't know how to find what you don't know. And so it can be as simple as not really knowing the right keywords to punch in to find that sort of knowledge. And I think when we're faced with this sort of almost overwhelming amount of content out there, the anomalous state of knowledge problem really looms its head. And so I think tools like LEAP can really help address these problems. So we at UBC have sort of identified some of these problems in terms of incorporating open educational resources into our curriculum, and also sort of understanding that self-regulated learning is really what our students are doing. I think as a student, I think when I take a course, it's really an opportunity for me to learn. I don't expect sort of my head to be a vessel to be filled by the textbook, the instructor, or anything else. I mean, there's going to be some of that. They're going to point me to good resources, but there's also really the opportunity for me to go out and actually figure something out about the thing that I'm interested in. So if you could push forward, great, thanks. So I think, in a lot of ways, LEAP addresses these problems head on. It really understands and provides recommendations for content that's been shown to be effective towards the learning objectives selected by the instructor. Or really, by those determined by learners in terms of what they've explored so far and what they're searching for within the system. I think Bill gave you a pretty good rundown of the potential and the capabilities of LEAP in that way. So, it can both be instructor-driven, or really it can be explored by the learners themselves. And the other thing is it really understands the learner and where they are in their learning process. It's going to provide content recommendations based on what they know well, what they don't know well, what they still need to work on. So, it allows both for remedial content and for advanced content within the same program of study, and even, within the same personal learning pathway. So I think this is really where we're getting to this idea of both segmentation and personalization. It understands how the content fits together and how things are related. So it can also make recommendations based on what students might be interested in, what they should attempt to explore next, and so on. So, I think that's really how it makes self-regulated learning easier and more effective. I just want to sort of reinforce it, though. So on a macro sort of course content level, it helps instructors ease the challenge of finding, filtering, and incorporating effective open educational resources into their existing curriculum. And on a micro level, it helps students find the best content that's going to aid them in learning by really understanding where they are in their learning pathway, what they know well, what they don't know that well, what they're going to be interested in exploring, and really it's going to do it. It's going to figure out how to present it to them in a way that's going to be most effective towards their learning. So as I said, we were really interested in figuring out having some data collected and some data analyzed to sort of support the anecdotal data that we collected in our pilot. And so, we did run an evaluative study of LEAP. So, Bill, if you want to push forward for me. Oh, one back. Thank you. So, yeah, we wanted to back these claims with some empirical data. And so, to do that, we designed and conducted a study. The study was funded by NSERC, which is the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council of Canada. It's essentially the Canadian equivalent of the NSF. And really, the study compared 3 different learning environments. One was a repository of learning materials with a Google search front end, so just basically allowing the students to search through a repository of content. The other one was a Moodle-based course with a typical sequence and progression through learning materials, so you can think of like a typical LMS learning module, sequencing content followed by a quiz. And then we had basically that same Moodle course with all the same content more or less, but equipped with the LEAP platform. And what we actually see from those results is that the students' grades improved from 24% to 34%. And so 24% absolute gain. So, considering that they sort of, those are the absolute gains in their learning, judged from their pre-tests and their post-tests, and a 34% relative gain in the final test scores over the traditional LMS. And, they also did it 30% less time. So it was definitely more effective and more efficient. And beyond that, we also sort of did a perception data collection. And certainly the students liked this platform. They enjoyed using it, and it received the highest subjective scores on perceived usefulness. So, I think the results definitely supported what we figured anecdotally from our pilot, in that LEAP offers more effective, more efficient, and better perceived learning experiences for our students here at Sauder and at UBC. And so just one other thing, I'm also a doctoral student at the iSchool here at UBC, and I'm focused on learning analytics and e-learning. And, this is really what I'm most interested in, the reciprocal relationship between the design of an environment or informational interface and the learning behaviors and the interactions that users have within that designed space. So, I think that it's important to note that LEAP also sort of is interested in this relationship. And if you want to just go one slide forward, I think the questions and processes that inform the research that I do look a lot like this. We start on moving from tech to the learner. How does the technology influence the user's learning process? And then moving back from the learning to the technology, what implications does the user learning process have towards the design of technology? So, we really see an iterative, cyclical, reciprocal cycle here. And I think this is how, great learner-centered educational technologies are created, usually in this type of iterative process that includes, development, testing, use, research, and redevelopment. So it's important, I think, to recognize that this logic, this approach, is directly embedded into the design of LEAP. The reciprocal cyclical process of looking at the interface and then also looking at the knowledge state of the learner, that's all part of LEAP. And what's interesting about this tool is that the more people use it, the better experience it's going to offer to its users. It's going to get to know, the content much better. It's going to understand, the individual learner and even sort of the group of learners who run through the content. And so in that way, it really does learn and improve over time and over use. And so, really, that's why I'm here today advocating this great tool. I think it's excellent in design and application. And as I said, it has a great deal of potential in today's educational landscape. So definitely, I think if you guys are interested in incorporating this sort of adaptive tool and personalization of educational experiences, I think LEAP's an excellent tool to look at.
Thank you so much, Drew, and thank you for kind words. It's very nice of you to say that. So I hope that this short webinar that we had today at least sparked your interest and that you've learned. So what we're currently doing is we have a special access program. So we are giving access to those interested in implementing the adaptive learning solution in your organization. So if you want to be an innovator or pioneer, in trying to do this. We'd be more than happy to sit down and then tell you what the LEAP is more about and get you involved in the program. Here's the email address just to reach out. Send us your email and we'll take it from there. I also want to note that we will be, as a Desire to Learn, we will be participating, of course, in the next EDUCAUSE. But what I really would like to extend an invitation is we have a hot topic panel on the personalization and adaptive learning. We're bringing the leaders in the industry, so I'll be moderating that panel at the EDUCAUSE, where we will be asking even more difficult questions. Well, what about the privacy issues? What about the big data? What about, you know, is the competency approach the right approach? Talk about why not personalization. Why do people believe that this is just mechanization and that's just a mean process to replace teachers? This is a very hot topic that we are very interested in from people like yourself who are delivering education on the ground, and we are really interested always in providing a better, pervasive, personal, and perceptive learning environment for you to deliver the education to the learner. So I hope this was useful. So I'll leave just a few more minutes for any questions that you may have, but I really appreciate the time and the opportunity to tell you more about Desire to Learn LEAP. Thank you.
So, Bill, there is a question that came in about what LTI version was used to create this. And if this is posted on the IMS site. So as far as the certifications being posted on the IMS site, if you go to imscert.org, you can see a comprehensive list of all the solutions that have achieved IMS certification, and specifically drill down to the version of the product as well as the version of the IMS specifications.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're interested in getting the LTI with support 1112, so just reach out to us. We can, like we said, we can give you a trial key, but it takes, please know that LEAP is a middleware. The LEAP cannot provide a magic if you don't have a content, if you don't have questions. So before we sit down and give you the key, it would be good to discuss just what kind of content do you have, where are your questions. Do you have a number of adapters that can pull that content out? But if you have some proprietary that you'd like us to work with, like we said, your library, your school, your own repositories, we're more than happy to sit down. And actually that is exactly what we're looking for in this LEAP Special Access Program, for people who have something that really is going to bring a sort of mutual value to the table.
We've also had a few questions come in about whether or not the webinar was recorded, and it has been recorded, and we will be posting that to the IMS site, and we'll alert everyone once those materials are posted so that you can share with your colleagues.
Yes, and this is Hap, and I'd like to thank Bill and Drew, but also I want to mention, when you are going to look for that archive on the IMS site, go to the click pages on the IMS site, sign our petition, learn more about the app challenge, and get connected with the community. These types of apps will grow in number and availability and variety for the end user community if we have participation from you all.
Okay. Well, thank you so much again, and I look forward to meeting you either virtually or at EDUCAUSE, or just reach out. You have my email in the presentation, which is available. By all means, I really thank you for the opportunity and look forward to talking to you soon. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.